We want to give a big shout out to our sponsors. First up, we have Castro's Pool Service and Repair. If you guys need your guys' pool serviced, maintenance, clean, fixed, Castro's Pool Service and Repair is the place to go. Their phone number is 209-675-5418. That's 209-675-5418. Check them out today, guys. Support those that support us.
It's birthday!
I'm Jesse.
I'm Raquel.
This is The Hassle of Hair, a podcast.
Going after your dreams.
A podcast about going after your dreams.
Okay.
But no, it's a podcast about going after your dreams and finding your passion in life.
Yes.
And we're The Hassle of Hair.
For the Hassle of Hair?
We are The Hassle of Hair. Thanks for listening, guys. Love you. You guys had different perspectives on things. Even probably first generation men to first generation women.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to say the first generation men are mostly engineers or business majors, but I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah,
Really.
No hate. I'm just saying there's a lot of, I feel like they focus a lot on that. But I think it also has to do with our upbringing, because I feel like as women, we're always, at least in our culture, we're always taught to be more of service to others. And then where men are kind of built more to be oh, go chase after your dreams, or you're going to be this or that. There's a whole psychology behind it, but I mean.
Do you feel that way?
Yeah. It's an emphasis on, oh, well, you know what? You're going to be the provider, the caretaker. I was the oldest daughter. So for me, I've always been in charge of taking care of my siblings. I've always just So when even college came around, it wasn't even known that I was going to go to college. It was kind of I applied without anyone knowing. And so it was, it was just kind of assumed, oh, maybe she's going to go around around here, Merced, if she does end up going, because she has to be close to the family.
Did you end up going to college?
Yeah, I went to UC Irvine.
Oh, damn.
I said, I'm out of here. I needed my own experience, so.
What'd you major in?
I have 3 bachelors. I have, yeah. I have
Period.
a lot of people make that face. I was I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I have a criminology major, Chicano Latino studies, and anthropology.
Jesus, I'm dumb.
No.
No.
What do you have? Your major's psychology? No.
So I graduated from San Jose State, and I have a bachelor's in sociology, general sociology, which is kind of I always try to kind of tell people it's kind of psychology on steroids in a sense, because psychology is more focused onto the individual experience, whereas sociology is focused on the bigger factors that affect us. So the economy, for an example is inflation. How does that affect all of us? How does that affect the working class, the middle class, the upper class? So that's what we focus more on, more of the social effects of the world that we live in. Whereas psychology is more micro interactions, how are you traumatized by the way that I treat you? That's kind of a different example for that.
And what are things that because I'm second or third generation, I'm pretty far from actually having relatives that live in Mexico. I don't know any of my relatives that live in Mexico. Most of them I don't even think anybody talks to anymore. It's not you're in contact with people, with relatives in Mexico. Are you in contact with?
Yeah. So the majority of my family is in Mexico. I only have an aunt in North Carolina.
That's random as fuck.
Yeah, it's so random. She chose the most random place, and I'm why? Because even where she lives, it's surrounded by forest. I'm are you living in Twilight? Sometimes I want to ask her that, but yeah, everyone else.
She wanted to find that Edward Cullen out there.
My Edward.
Jacob, where you at, bro?
No, I texted my cousin today. I was hey, can I go visit you? He's why would you want to? There's nothing over here. I'm just because. But yeah. But yeah, all of them are in Mexico, and so it kind of, that's also an aspect where I've talked to my siblings, and it's weird because we see other people have their grandmas or people really close family members here in the States, and we never grew up with that. We grew up kind of being isolated ourselves because everyone is over there. Yeah. It was pretty difficult, but I think that's why we're a lot closer as siblings. We make little pacts. For Christmas, we always have to come home the year together. It doesn't matter where we're at. And it's for that same reason.
But do you like your cousins and like family members over there? Do they stereotype you guys for living over here? Like, is there things that they think that you guys have glamorous that's not really glamorous, or like what?
Excuse me, we are glamorous.
Don't you see this highlight?
Yeah, we woke up like this.
I know I woke up a little crusty, but I'm just kidding. Well, the majority of the family that I have most interactions with here in the U.S. is my mom's family. So my mom is a family of like 10. I want to say like 7, at least 7 of her siblings are here. So all of my cousins are on this side. I do still have family on the other side. And it was always a tradition when my grandmother was still alive to go and see her every December and interact with all my family members. So for us, it was more like homey, but I do relate to what Mayra said, that we've always been a little more isolated for some reason. I think it's because we always lived in different sides of town. But in terms of glamorousness, yeah, I feel like the biggest stereotype that as first generation kids is that, you know, it's so easy for you to get this or that. It's so easy for you to buy an iPod. It's so easy for you to get a new phone. So I'm pretty sure, I feel like a lot of people would relate to this, that sometimes when I would go and visit, I'm not saying all of my cousins, but I would say there was a certain few that were like, oh, just give me your shoes, or like, give me your phone. Like, you can get one so easily over there. Yeah. Or like, you're not able to send me like $20, like $40 or something like that. And yeah. I mean, it's funny because you're like, you look at them and you're like, no, it's not that easy, because I think as hard as life is over there, it's hard here too, because I think the hardest thing as a first generation child is that you have to go through things by yourself. Not that nobody wants to help you, or not that your parents can't help you, but it's in part it's like the language barrier, but it's also the fact that they don't understand the systems to the way that you're going to understand them, and you have to figure that out by yourself. And yeah, so I feel like that's the thing, that stereotype, like you can get things easy kind of thing. And it's not like that, because at least for me, I feel like I've always had to work somehow to get what I want. And even then, like, I feel like you always have this guilt of even asking your parents for money or stuff like that, because you're always worried about like the economy, I guess. So I think that's the biggest stereotype, like, oh, you guys are rich over there, you guys can get anything, like, you know.
It's crazy because like I talked to your dad, and I talked to their family before about like your dad like watches YouTube videos of his village. Like he watches. It's a village, right?
Kind of. I think so. He watches a bunch of videos, but yes.
But from his actual town, and it's crazy because people, and I really don't know, right? But people want to get over here. But then you see your dad who's over here, and then he's still like reminiscing and wanting to go back, and like he's sad that when he's passionate about when he talks about like when he was there. It's like a pull. It's like you want to get over here, but then it pulls you back, and like, and it's a strange feeling. It has to be a weird feeling to want to be somewhere, but then you really don't want to leave somewhere. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
No, you are.
Yeah.
I think I always say that I'm not American, but I feel like I am Mexican, but not like that Mexican. So I'm always kind of like in between. But I have that similar feeling. I think it's because of how much time that I spend with my family every year, that I learn to appreciate the community that I'm coming from, the people that I'm coming from. So I feel like I have that feeling. Where like I always wish I could go back, or like I've always told my mom I wish I would have studied over there a little bit to learn more about the community and the education over there, and appreciate it even more. So I personally do feel like that sometimes too, even though I'm not from Mexico, but I do feel that too.
Mexico.
Yeah. Mexico.
And I know most of her story and how her parents got here. Do your parents like talk about how they got here?
Yeah. So, my dad, well, he's the oldest in his family, and so he had to provide for his siblings, and so he had to come to the States to make money for that. And I know he was really young, and he didn't want. It wasn't really his choice. It was just like he had to. And so he met my mom here. My mom was actually on a visa here. She was 17, and she met my dad. And they kind of just fell in love. And I love talking about their story because he's actually going to get married to someone. and then he fell in love with her. And it was kind of like, oh, well, you can't date her.
Oh, I understand now. It took me a while. I was like, in my head, I was like, he's getting married right now? Or?
No, he was getting married to someone. Yeah,
married.
the lady already had the dress, like the church, everying. Like
in
the wedding
Mexico?
set. No, here in the
Here?
States. But he was just getting married just to get married.
No, it's just wild.
He was getting married just to get married because he was getting older, and in Mexico it's tradition to get married early. Like we're old for our age. I have like aunts telling me, "Oh, when are you gonna get a boyfriend? Like, is something wrong with you?"
Even the generation now,
Yes.
like of kids in Mexico.
Yeah, it's exactly
Still?
the same. It's exactly the
There's
same.
people who get married 16, 17, 18.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
And I think
I
it's
thought
like
I was
I think it's the way of life. I think
Yeah.
that's why community over there is such a big part. Like over there, you know who your neighbors are. You talk to your neighbors. You talk to everyone around you. And I feel like here it's more individualistic. A lot of times it's like being independent and all of that. And over there it's really different. I think that's part of the reason like we reminisce that we like that. We like feeling a part of that.
I guess it's like, I don't know, right? The last time I was over there, I think I was like 5.
In Mexico?
Yeah. Well, Juarez. And
okay.
if that's even Mexico.
It is.
Yeah,
It's Chihuahua.
But El Paso is like, it's
Like
crazy because I
across
went to
the
high school in
bridge.
El Paso for a little bit.
What?
The first language is Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Okay.
insane. Like, it's in the United States, but you go to El Paso and the first language is Spanish. Like, I remember driving through I don't know what fast food restaurant it was. I drove through. They spoke to me in Spanish.
No way.
Like, it was insane. Like, it's crazy. And that was a while ago. But no, I guess what it is, like, it's like over here, you're like determined to get your dreams, your passions, make everything happen for yourself. Over there, it's like build the community.
Yeah.
Let's like it's why it's exactly like build the community. It's exactly why people risk coming over the border to build their community, to build their family. Like over here, I'm thinking about like how am I gonna feed me? Like
Yeah.
I mean, I have one daughter. I mean, I worry about her and my wife, but at the same time, like I'm worried about like my future.
Yeah.
A lot of people that the community you're talking about, I feel like they're being selfish is kind of hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then so were you gonna say something? Oh no. You were talking about how your dad married.
Oh yeah. So he was getting married.
Yeah.
But he met my mom. She swooped in and
She said this should be mine.
it's not bad though. It's not bad. She didn't do any bad. But he fell in love with they fell in love and
Yeah.
he ended up leaving the other lady, like telling her I'm sorry, but like I
Deuces.
can't. You
So
know?
hold on. So like there's a was it how people get married to get their visa? Was he doing that with that woman?
No. So he
Okay.
actually got his residency through a bill that was passed by a president.
Okay.
And so he was able to actually,
Was it the
get his
amnesty?
papers. And so because he was a field worker for a long time, and then he had a while here working, and so he was able to get that, thankfully. But he was getting married just because he was getting older, and so then he met my mom. She was 17. He was
Your
like
dad's a
20.
player.
He was like 25 almost. Okay,
He
I
was
know
like-
it sounds
he
bad,
was
but
like
it
that
wasn't that
meme.
bad. Yeah, and so they ended up deciding to get married. They went back to Mexico. They got married there. My dad came back because he had his papers, but he had to send my mom to cross the border with a coyote. But back then, it was so much easier to cross than it is now. So you can use somebody else's papers to pass back. I don't know if this is I should say, but but yeah.
No,
There is
But-
no illegal activities here.
I know.
We are not confessing to anything.
Yeah. And yeah, so she ended up fixing through my dad eventually, and then when she had us, well, we were all born here. It's 5 of us. I have 5 siblings.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's wild. So
Yeah.
your mom and dad went back a few times, right?
Yeah, so my dad did I think I can't really remember how his story is, but I do know that he was here first. He was here first, and then he did get papers through like the amnesty,
Mhm.
and then I think my mom had just came over with her brother.
Yeah.
And then since they had known each other since they were younger, not romantically, they just kind of knew each other. And then eventually when they were here, they got together. They had Gloria.
Yeah.
And then once they got married, they went back, and then my dad had to come back with Gloria, I think. And then
Yeah,
it took a while for my mom to come back. Not too long. I think it was just a year. And then that's how they both of them were here. But first my mom did come over, and well, my dad came over first, and then my mom came over differently, and then they married here.
Like growing up, like for me as a kid, like growing up, my parents, they didn't have to endure that. My mom and dad, my dad had a pretty good job at Pac Bell, turned into SBC, then AT&T, for the phone company, and then worked at Frito Lay before that. Like he grew up in San Jose. My mom grew up in San Jose. Like understanding that your parents like sacrificed to come over the border, and it was difficult for them. Like probably your parent, I don't know your parents' full story. It was difficult for them, right? Do they
Mm.
talk about how difficult it was?
My dad my dad can't really talk about because he tried various times to cross the border. For
Yeah.
my mom, it was it was easier, I would have to say, because it the first time she had a visa, and then the second time, well, she just had to cross with someone else's papers. But my dad had to cross the desert, and I think he was stuck in Tijuana for a long time, and I remember him just telling me like a little bit of his story. He said one time he was in a room full of a bunch of different people, and all they had to eat was tortillas. So they would just have a tortilla with a little bit of salt, and that was their meal. And so I think he tears up
Yeah,
all the
tears
time
up.
when he talks about it. So he's never really actually spoken about everything,
Yeah.
because I know it was so hard for him. And even when he was here, he can't eat chabacanos. What are they called in English? Chabacanos.
Apricots?
They're like smaller ones.
Plums?
No, they're
Fruit.
orange.
You could
It's
just
It's
call
just
it-
a specific. It's a
It's a
specific
specific
fruit in
fruit.
the
Yeah.
field, right?
Yeah, because when he came over, he was a field worker, and he said that he couldn't afford, since he would have to send the money back home, he couldn't afford to buy food. So people would be like, "Oh, let's go get tacos, let's go get that," and he wouldn't. He would just pick the fruit, eat that fruit. So
Right.
now, whenever he sees the fruit, he can't eat it anymore because he had so much back then, and that was one of the stories, because I didn't know that, and he was like, because I was like, why don't you like it? He's like, no, I just, and he opened up about that, and it kind of just gives you a little glimpse of like how hard it actually was.
So hearing that, and I've heard your parents' story,
Mhm.
like your parents are awesome, and but hearing that as a young kid, or even knowing, right? Like, what does that do to you? Like like me, my parents didn't endure that. I know they had a little bit of rough childhoods, but they didn't. They didn't. That's starvation, right? Like close
Yeah.
to starvation. Like my parents didn't. They had to deal with not getting clothes or having to work. They worked in the fields because their parents made them to get clothes, but they were always taken care of. Like, what does that do to you guys, knowing that you guys parents sacrificed it? Is it too much pressure? Is it too much pressure to succeed, or is it just something that's motivation for you?
I think it's a little bit of both. I would say that I, well, in my position specifically as the oldest daughter, it was always like I would see this, and that's the reason that I would always, after school, I would pick up my siblings, I would take care of them, I would make dinner, I would clean, because I saw how much they sacrificed
To relieve like pressure from
Yeah.
them too, so you kind of become like a third parent.
You
with
become a
them.
third parent, yeah, and you are in charge of everything that has to do with the house. Like, if there was a bill, they didn't speak English, I would pick it up, because at the end of the day, you're like, oh, well, I see how much they're struggling, and I'm gonna help them out. it motivated me to try harder. But sometimes it does feel like a lot of pressure, where I feel like I don't know if I'm strong enough. I don't know if I'm smart enough. I don't know if I can do this. And you can't really tell them. You can't tell them, oh, like, I feel like,
Yeah.
hey, I feel like
you don't feel
you're
the
doing
comfort
this.
of telling them.
I ate tortillas with salt. Oh, you're gonna tell me you can't do this?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, though.
Yes.
Because like when you're starting to wear down, like everybody has those moments when it's like, even going through school. I don't know what you guys had dealt with going through school. It's probably hard, right? But like, how is it like being able to tell your parents, hey, this is hard, like this is tough, like this is because they went through tough.
Échale ganas, mija.
Échale ganas.
What does that mean? Oh,
No esperaba menos.
Yeah.
What does that
Oh,
mean?
you could do it.
Yeah.
I agree with Myra. I think it's both of them. I feel like it's pressure, and it's also like, I don't know if I can do it kind of thing. Because I personally feel like with my parents, I grew up with them. I feel like, at least for me, I felt like I grew up with my parents as they were growing up.
Yeah.
Like, they're my parents, yes, and they're like 20 years older than me or whatever. But I do feel like I was growing up with them, and I had to learn with them. And I specifically remember moments, and this is so sad, because I feel like no child should really think about stuff like this. But when the recession hit, like, what was it, like 2007, 2008?
2008.
So my dad actually lost both of the houses that he had, and I remember sitting.
Wait, your dad had 2 houses?
He had to. Well, so at that time, we were living in San Jose, and they had gotten a house over there.
Yeah.
And then my dad wanted to get a house here in Los Baños, and then he did get it, but he was like, I'm only gonna get it if somebody else wants the other house.
Yeah.
So we had like an arrangement with like one of our family members, like, hey, you pay the rent, like,
That never ends good.
yeah. So I mean, you already you already know. So I'm not gonna talk too much about that, but eventually we couldn't afford this house in Los Baños anymore. It was one of the new KB homes that it was in front of Pacheco High School, and Pacheco High School actually didn't exist still. And then when we came back, we went back to San Jose, and we were just in an empty house because we had to. I think my dad was foreclosing the house, something like that. So he was basically losing it too. And I remember my dad when he gets really stressed, he gets like the face paralysis, and that's when the stress is just super extreme for him. And I remember like sitting in like an empty living room, and we just had a TV, and we just had like a couch, and I remember like telling my parents, oh, I wish I could work so I could help you.
Yeah.
And I was like 11.
Yeah.
And I feel like no kid should have to go through that. I'm not like, putting the blame on anybody, but I feel like as a kid growing up with your parents and, having to go through all of these things, that you're like, one day I'm going to be good enough to help you out. One day I'm going to be good enough to make sure that I know how to read these papers. Oh, sorry.
You can back it up a little bit.
Sorry. But yeah, I feel like it's kind of, I feel like you eventually put a lot of pressure on yourself. And sometimes it's way too much pressure than you should even be putting on yourself.
Yeah.
And there's this thing called the imposter syndrome, where you're like, am I even good enough to do this? Am I even smart enough to be in like this classroom? Like, I remember that was my first semester in college, where I was like, you know what? I'm not even doing good. Like, I'm just taking up somebody else's space. Like, I should just drop out. And yeah, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like listening to that, it goes back to like, well, they went through all of this, like, and I can't even do this. Like, oh no, then that means I'm not good for this. It's very like a black and white thing.
Yeah.
So.
But it's crazy because like you talk about your growing up with your parents, right? Like you're in you're 28.
I'm 25.
You're 25?
Yeah,
I'm so
3
sorry.
years.
What?
No, you messed up. She's gonna walk out right now.
You know what?
Done.
I'm over.
You're 25. But okay, so I'm in my 30s, right? You're 22. 22? No, you're not. How
I'm
old are you?
25.
You're 25? Okay, so I'm in my 30s now. Like I could tell you, like You like your parents are in their 20s when when raising you guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's such a
I think when I was here, they were in their like barely getting into their 30s, probably like your age right now.
yeah. Then they're kids, right? They're kids, because I'm barely growing up, and I'm 32. I'm probably never gonna grow up. But like, there's so many questions that are being answered in my 30s. In my 20s, it was a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like they're trying to work through things as they're raising you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then not only that, they're not only going through adulthood, but then they're going through a culture shock, right? Because when they come over here, and do they talk about, like, do your parents talk about the culture shock or the changes they had to go through, like, or is there any changes that you guys is there anything that you guys go to school and other kids look at you like, why are you guys doing that? I'll put it in perspective. I watched the food truck show on Netflix. Have you guys seen it? It talks about different food trucks, and there's a lady, she's Vietnamese, and she talks about going to school and having stinky food that everybody didn't.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
and
I might have seen a clip of that.
Yeah, and like that's one thing like people don't understand, like, and it's good food, right? And there's a lot of like things that people look at other cultures, what they do, and they're like, instead of like appreciating it and looking at it for what it is, they just look at it and like
they see it with otherness, like, oh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just so, like, is there things that you guys had to deal with, because you guys are in two worlds, like it or not, right?
Yeah.
Like, you guys, I'm not, if that makes sense. Like, you guys go back to Mexico, you go in that culture, and then you guys come over here. Like, is there anything that's different or you guys deal with? That's a loaded question, sorry.
The things that we deal with, the culture shock. So the culture shock and things that we deal with within it, and then how like our parents see it.
Yeah.
I think my mom definitely has a lot to say about like culture being different, because she always says that's kind of like an American thing. That's kind of like like you guys are so liberal, and I'm just like, wait till she sees what I do on the weekend. But yeah, I feel like personally I've gotten used to like the culture shock, the interchanging it. Yeah. But I do have moments where I'm like, really, y'all? The light bulb doesn't click that this is probably not a good idea, or this is not good. So I don't know, I feel like I learned more about how to understand the culture shock in college. Yeah. Just because at least for me, I went to school in the Bay Area, so the Bay Area is super diverse, and it has a lot of different kinds of people that I was so used to seeing, like Indian people, Vietnamese people, like Asian people, Polynesian people, just different communities. And especially being from East San Jose, like you grow up with everybody, so nothing is too like different for you. So I feel like, I don't know, I think I'm more used to like the culture shock, whereas my family's kind of like, what are they doing? That's so interesting. That's so different. Why do they use that to cook? So yeah, I don't know if I completely answered the question.
I don't even know what I asked, to be honest.
No.
I just
high right now.
Yeah, just a little bit.
I'm saying if there's like anything that you deal with that people see, like, find that people just, is there anything that people just don't understand what you guys go through as like having parents from Mexico, right? Like I heard a joke talking about growing up with a grandma that's from Mexico that doesn't understand English at all. Mm-hmm. Right? He got to just go on the phone when his teachers would call, and she'd tell him in Spanish, like, what are they saying? He's like, oh, don't worry. They said, what do you say? They're asking proof of residency. And then she'd like hang up, and like he would never get in trouble for anything. I don't know where I'm going with this. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I think I want to say this is going to sound funny and small probably, but something that other people probably wouldn't understand, that you're like, oh yeah, you're definitely like Mexican or you're Latino, you know? where they're like, "Hey, so you're free this weekend? Oh man, I gotta clean the house first,
Yeah.
and then I can, and then I can go out." I think it's. I feel at least maybe it's because I'm a woman too, but I also feel like, in general, the culture that why are you going out? Why do
Yeah.
you have to go out every day? I feel like here in the U.S. it's very like, oh, let's go for drinks, let's go have lunch, let's go have dinner, let's all hang out. And then I feel like growing up, it was like, why are you going out again? Like, you went out yesterday. You can't just stay home today.
Every
I don't
time
know
I
if it's
talk
a-
to your mom.
I don't know if it's a parent thing.
When
Yeah,
I
every
see-
time
when
you talk to her.
the-
Yeah, can you believe Gloria stayed over there? Can you believe Mel decided to leave me today?
Bad girl, bad girl.
Yeah.
She says that.
I'll tell her like, hey, I seen Gloria at the bar. And like, oh, hey, this is Gloria.
Borracha.
Out of control.
Out of control.
Out of control.
Literally.
I don't know what she's thinking.
Gloria works all week, like nonstop. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
She can have one day to break. I don't know. But I like another thing I wanted to ask you guys, because I'm like, my daughter's dating now, right?
Ooh, dang.
But like,
That's nervous.
it's a new
Nervousness.
world, right? It's a new
Yeah.
world, like dating apps, like,
Do you remember when you started dating, Jesse?
yeah. But even, well,
Are there
I
dinosaurs around? I just kidding.
Want to call us old over here?
Yeah.
but I met Raquel like at a bar. I actually met her at a Banda Agave, like Agave at a Banda restaurant. And there's a Banda. There's like, but like I don't know, like how do you guys do it? Like I don't understand the dating scene at all. Like there's apps and all that stuff. Do you guys use all those things? Because it's not a bad thing anymore, right?
It's not.
Right?
I feel
Before
like there
it was.
I feel
mean,
like there was a stigma on
yeah.
it
Can you
from
imagine
Latino
telling your
parents.
mom- yes.
Well,
Can you
to us.
imagine telling your mom like you?
Tinder?
my parents still have a stigma. I think though a lot of them. It's okay with us,
Yeah.
but I could never tell my mom, "Oh yeah, I'm on this app." She'd be like, "Hey, why are you on that? Like, what's the hurry? Like, that's not okay. Oh, you only go on that if you want one thing, and that's not okay." Like that's what she thinks. So I just never mention anything about apps.
I feel like they'd rather set you guys up with someone that they feel
Someone
like,
they met at church.
yeah,
Yeah.
like that they don't know. Like it's the same thing. What they don't understand is the same thing, right?
Yes.
You don't know them.
You don't know them. You're gonna go out with them. You're gonna have tacos. They could.
Kidnap
But-
you.
Are you
Yeah.
guys on the dating apps at all?
I personally have never used dating apps. I have been in a long distance relationship.
I'd even
for like
ask you
10
guys if you guys
years.
are in relationships.
I've been in a relationship for. It's gonna be 10 years in January,
You said long distance, right?
and it's long distance. Yeah, he lives in Mexico, and he's gonna come over here in November. So you're gonna meet him, Jesse.
okay.
Bachelorette party.
Yeah. Last shot before the knot.
What? Not. I don't get it. Hold on.
Shut.
Last shot before the knot.
Shut.
La-
It's okay. Once you
Yeah.
watch this again, you'll get it.
A truck's driving
We'll
by.
attach a picture.
I think Raquel's gonna be like, "Don't you get it, Jesse?"
I don't. No, but like, okay.
So I've never been on apps, but
No.
So I'm in a committed. I'm just kidding. No, I've actually never had a boyfriend. So
Never?
I've
You're
never.
25. I'm not putting you down.
No,
but
I mean, I think it comes a lot with what we were talking about,
Yeah.
the expectations and all this. I was so focused on school. I was so focused on my family. There was at one point when I had 3 jobs, 20 units. I had like 5 classes, and I didn't have time for myself. So I've never dated. Sure, I've like talked to a few guys, but it's never gone more than like, text. Like, I get really nervous. I think I have commitment issues or something. I'm just scared of talking to people. And I think it's back to that, like, oh, you have to, like, the one person you're going to talk to is the person you're going to marry. Or, like, like, there's this, like, this idea, I think that my mom, like, and my
instilled in you.
yeah. And it's kind of, like, scary.
I used to think like that too.
Because I don't even know how to talk to guys. Like romantically, I don't know. So I did get a bunch. Like I've gotten
it's not
apps.
that hard. I'm not gonna tell you. It's not that hard.
You just have to-
literally just
You
need
just
to
say
hi.
hi. Okay, but you say that, but just saying hi, I'm just like, I'll
You just have to
freeze.
tell them you down for a cheeseburger or no?
Do you want to share a taco? I just,
Lady in the Tramp style.
But no, I have downloaded apps, but I've never found someone interesting. I think I have really high expectations.
Yeah.
Or like I just want someone with goals and stuff, and I don't see a lot of that. And so it kind of just, tears me. So I was on Facebook dating a while back. Facebook has a dating thing
Like
installed
Facebook dating.
Yeah,
Facebook.
installed in the
dating?
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah, I was on it. It popped up. It was like, "Do you want to join?" I was like, "Okay, well, whatever." And so I joined. But then I saw people from town that I know. I was like, "Oh no."
Then
this
she
isn't
saw
good."
somebody from Bangladesh and was like,
Yeah, buddy.
And so yeah, I feel like for some people it really does work out. Like I know people who have met like their husbands, but it's just really hard, especially I think in the area we're in. Los Baños is really small and people have dated each other.
Yeah, that's pretty tough.
Yeah.
But I know.
I would have put it nicely. Well, yeah.
But it's exactly that. Like Los Baños, it is kind of hard to do that, right?
Yeah.
But then I don't know. It's just strange to me. Like, but I met a girl before Raquel. I met a girl online, on a website.
MySpace?
No,
Catfish.
on Facebook. It was on
It was
Facebook.
AOL?
No, it was on Facebook, and then I dated her for like 5 years. So, yeah.
Jesse.
But then I was too. Yeah, I've only had long term
relationships.
Yeah. I like went on a bunch of dates, one night stands and all that stuff, but never long term like that. Well, like I was even, so you guys don't understand. Yesterday I sat my daughter down and she I don't know if your parents, like, you guys tell me, like, this is kind of going away from like from the first generation stuff, but this is just father to daughter things. So like, did your dad ever sit you down and then like I sat her down I sat her down yesterday because she's in a relationship now, and I was like, okay, I need to talk to her from a man's perspective. So I told her, I was like, look, and I was being nice in the beginning. I was like, look, respect yourself. You're like, people are only going to respect you if you love yourself, and like things like that, you know what I mean? Like if you're in a committed, don't ever try to love somebody, try to make someone love you. It's never going to work. You're going to end up doing things you don't want to do, all this stuff. And then like after telling her all those things, right, I was like, okay, I told her 2 points, and then on the third one I was like, okay, number 3, this is going to be awkward, but we're going to have to talk about it. So I told her, I was like that guy's coming.
Just like, I'm sorry, where is he?
Hold on, guys. We're gonna get to the third point. No, okay. So sorry, someone came up. They thought we're open. No, but the third point was like, so I told her, I was like, I didn't lose my virginity till I was older, and I was like, and then we started talking about sex. She literally like, I'm out. I'm done. Like right when I brought up sex, like I was talking about relationships, all this stuff. She was agreeing, she was talking to me, and then right when I brought up sex, and it's hard for me to even tell her anything about it too, because she's 16.
About sex?
Yeah, and about my personal experience with it, because I feel like I did it good, but then for her, like, did your dads ever talk to you about that stuff, or was it just not in the picture?
Jesse, you think my dad had time to sit down? No, sorry, I just had to say that. Honestly, my parents never sat me down to talk about things.
Not even your mom?
No, actually, the the closest thing my mom probably told me was like, take care of yourself.
That's it?
Yeah, I really don't think we never talked about condoms. We never talked about like abusive relationship. Nothing. I feel like it was just kind of like, okay, like, you know how to take care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of it. And then now I feel like my mom kind of wants to open up more and like talk about like the more intimate things. And now I'm like, no, I have TikTok. No, but I'm honestly like, no, like,
it's rough. It's tough.
I don't
right?
want to talk about it anymore because I feel like I know a little bit now. Like, I feel like I personally have always been a very curious person. So yes, even as like a 12, 13, 14-year-old, I was looking stuff up on Google that I probably shouldn't have been looking up.
Yeah.
but to know more
Yeah.
about like sex.
And
But that
like,
was just my experience.
so even if your mom talks to you now, you feel uncomfortable.
I feel like weird, like I don't want to talk about this right now. I kind of like try to like change the subject. She'll be like, yeah, it's because, you know, like when this happens, and I'm like,
But like it's so strange to me. I don't know. Did your parents ever sit you down?
No.
No.
No. The other
Maybe I
day,
shouldn't have sat her down.
the
then.
other day somebody read my
no,
hand.
it's actually a good thing for you to do that because
Yeah.
that you are building a connection with them and you're allowing them to talk about like if anything were to ever happen, you could be like they could at least they have in the back of their head, oh yeah, my dad did. I think he did mention something like this. I'm probably gonna step away from that and then go back to him, talk about it maybe,
Yeah.
or my mom, and then
Yeah.
I'll see.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
it just opens the door. I feel like for us, it's so difficult because our parents never.
I don't think
opened that
they ever
door.
had that either.
Yeah, they never had that. They never told
Yeah.
us about it, and because they didn't have prior knowledge of it, and I think. I also kind of just now that we're older, they're kind of maybe like sensing, oh, like maybe now is when we should talk to them because they're older, but now we're so used to not talking about it that we are kind of just feel weirded out. We're like, no, we don't want to talk about it ourselves now. The other day, someone read my hand, and they were like,
Shout out
oh,
to George.
yes. He was like, oh, I see a pregnancy in the future, and I mentioned it to my mom, and she was like, the day after, she was like, mija, I know you said you were for pregnancy, but it just worries me. Like, I hope you're married when you get pregnant. I'm like, it was a hand reading, and I was like, there was nothing about what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
and
I ain't even having sex right
that,
now.
Yeah, that just gives you one example. She's like, I just hope you're married while you're pregnant. It got me worried. What the?
She's
been
with
worried
you
about it
all the
before?
time.
Yeah.
It's I don't want to. It's 11:56.
Oh no, it's okay. My appointment was canceled.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was canceled.
No, but like I don't know that it was tough. She doesn't understand. It was tough for me to talk to her about that stuff. She just thinks I'm being weird. It was like I'm like I don't want to say it. Like even saying sex. Like you know what I mean? And then so afterwards I was like, look, I just love you. That's it. And she's like, okay, I love you too. Bye. It was so strange. And like this as like my dad talked to me like, and then I see other boys, like boys don't have to deal with the that kind of stuff. Like we're just thrown into this world and just don't get a girl pregnant basically, if that makes sense. Like we don't have that issue of like I'm gonna have to go home and tell my parents my life's changed forever because I'm gonna be dealing with like if I went home and told my parents that I got a girl pregnant, right? It'd be like, okay, you're gonna have to take care of that kid, all this stuff, but they don't have to deal with my medical, like they don't have my health, like they don't have to make sure I'm okay. Now, if Eva came home, I'm gonna be pregnant. 9 months of her life and our life were like
Are altered.
yeah, like
And now it's like, it's way different. Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like I have to worry about even having the dogs around, like stuff. Like I have to worry because there's another human being in that person. It's such a crazy thing. Like even just a woman's perspective, like when it comes to just dating in general or even sex in general growing up, like is it tough? Like it wasn't tough for me. Like it was just like because you guys have to even going like me, if I stroll down the street by myself, right? I'm not really worried about getting
Oh,
you know,
okay. I
like-
see what you're talking about. So this
Yeah.
is we're talking about like assault and stuff like that, right?
I guess, yeah. I would ask that question because I'm all over the place.
Oh no, I mean you're good.
Okay.
But yeah, I think at least for me, I feel like as a woman, I've had a few things happen to me, not anything too extreme, but it's worrisome. You're
Yeah.
always worried about like, let me have my keys in my hand. Let me like, I'm gonna like walk really fast to my car right now that it's night. You know, just stuff like that. I think there's a lot of that like pregnancy, a lot of like, I don't know. I think for me personally, I don't want to have kids until like later because of the same thing is that it's another human, it's gonna change my life. It's gonna change my parents' life or somebody, whoever's around me, their lives, you know. And yeah, I feel like it's very different. I agree with you.
It's different from like just sex in general, right? It's just different from men to women. Like it's, and I'm realizing that now because I've been bouncing at a bar and I'm watching drunk people interact.
Yeah.
And like I'm not saying that every guy's the same, every guy's like a predator, but you could see like it happens constantly when there's just this awkward dude, he predator or not, he's just awkward, and he goes towards these women, and these women just feel vulnerable. And what's the first thing they do? They look up at security. They look up at me. They look at and then I'm looking at them like nothing's gonna happen, right? I'm not saying that there's a guy that this guy's wanting to do something to them, but in my head I'm like, man, I wouldn't do that. If some dude or anybody came up to me, I wouldn't look up for help. Does that make sense? Like she's looking up like, okay, am I safe?
You would say like as a man, you wouldn't look up. You would kind of like deal with it. You like then and there.
It's in like you know what I mean. I wouldn't be scared to deal with it myself.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like have you like I don't know. Have you guys ever dealt with situations like that where you've been pretty scared?
Do you want to add to that?
Yeah. So. I'm really open about this. Like I've talked about it. Like so I'm actually a survivor of assault in college.
I didn't know this. I didn't know this.
No.
So I didn't like talk to Mel. Hey Mel, tell me. Like I just brought this up because I literally am just acknowledging this as I do all this stuff.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
No, yeah, I'm actually a survivor of assault in college. Same thing. Like a few drinks happen, and somebody use that to abuse me, and I'm open about it now, but it was really hard for a long time. And I think, well, I lost my virginity, right? And so I think that's why one of the things, like for us, like it's really hard because virginity is put to like this, like it's like a trophy. And in my household it was always like, until you get married, that's when you know it's gonna happen or whatever. And then once it happens, you kind of feel like, oh my gosh, like I am a failure. Like I'm not worth anything anymore. And we literally have something in our bodies. Men, like, you know, it's like you don't literally have something go into your bodies. We do. And so when it comes to this, it's like for us, that's why we build connections. We get emotional and like all this because it's like a huge thing for us. And when you see this happening to someone, you know, constantly, it happens to you, you just kind of get this fear instilled in you. Even as I'm walking to my car after work, I'll look around because that's how scared I am. I'm scared that somebody will just come up to me. When I would go to bars with my friends, I would always just have this glare on my face. And it wasn't because I didn't want to talk to anyone. It was just that I don't trust people, especially around alcohol. Yeah. And especially men. Like I have this distrust. And I remember one time I was with friends dancing and a guy came up and he wanted to grab one of my friends. She was pretty intoxicated. And I was like, no, like I was like, back away, leave. And he was like, why are you being a bitch? He told me that, and I was like, because I am one. And I just said it because I am one. And then people go and tell us, oh, she's so angry. Why is she so angry? Like her friend's getting drunk. She probably wants that. Like you see all these people like in videos comment these things, and you're like, no, it's not that. It's we really know what happens when things like that are out of control. Yeah. So yeah, it's just really hard. And I know my strength, and I know I'm not as strong as some people, and so I think that's why the worry is like increased even tenfold. You know, like I could try to fight someone off, but if they're stronger than me, I just, you know, there's not much I can do about that. And I think that's why it's just really scary as women, especially like when you go back to dating apps and all of that. You don't want to meet up with someone by yourself. Like you don't know who that person can be. You don't know if they can do anything to you. it's just really scary to just meet people in general nowadays. It's kind of just like, oh well, I'll just stay by myself because it's safer that way.
Yeah.
It's
Do I
safer.
really want to go and see
But-
this person I don't know?
And it's wild because like, it's so crazy because I'm like, it's because my daughter's getting older. It's a worry of mine. It's legit a worry of mine because I'm bouncing, I'm watching these things, and I'm. It's just been on my mind, and it's crazy. To like, I didn't know anything about that from you, and I was just bringing that up because it's been a worry of mine. To hear that you went through that, I'm sorry, and but it's wild. Like, you're right. It's funny because I'm podcasting with another woman. Like, I'm producing her podcast, and she met me once. I sat down with her at Starbucks, and then she's like, okay, well, come to my house and you could set up and we could podcast. And then I left her house like after we had the setup, we found out where she's gonna have it, and then in my head I'm like, she met me once.
Yeah.
I was like I would never want my daughter to do that. Like,
Yeah.
that's a scary. But then my buddy, he's all, Jesse, you have 100 and something episodes on your podcast. People listen and people know who you are. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But it still doesn't make sense to me.
I think as women, we always investigate a lot.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why she trusted you to be like,
Yeah.
yeah, just come to my house. I mean, I know we probably live in the same town.
Yeah.
Okay, he made more than 100 episodes. He knows a few people that I have in common too.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why.
Yeah.
But I understand that.
Yeah.
Como dice, inquietud. Like the worry of
Yeah.
like.
But this
Yeah.
is like where not all men are like that. And I hope you could find your trust in men again. Because like it legit, like not all men are like that. When I say it's a lot. there's a lot of men like that, but there's not all men like that. And you just have, when you go out, like I see some women, and like they just make these just human mistakes. It's just men and women, right? It's just human mistakes of like, why would you be by yourself?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? There was a incident that happened at the bar that I work at where the guy was by himself looking for someone that he wanted to fight. And then first of all, I was like, what are you doing, dude? And then when you look for violence will find you, right? So he's walking up and he's like looking for the guy. There's another drunk dude. He had been on cocaine or something, and he's like looking at the guy, and he goes, "You looking at me?" The guy wasn't even looking at him. The guy was looking.
He goes, no.
And he took out a knife. Boom, took out a knife. And the guy that was looking for violence found violence, and he ended up running inside the bar. And it's like, first off, why are you by yourself looking for that person to fight? If you're gonna look for violence, you're gonna find violence. And they're just simple mistakes that people make as humans, that like, don't make those dumb mistakes. That's why I try to tell my daughter, like, don't be by yourself. I'm not saying that you made a mistake. That I hope, okay. I was like, there's things that we like. And then there's another girl that she put her drink down. I was doing security. She put her drink down. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I grabbed it. I was like, look it, I'm gonna put it right here in front of everybody. Don't ever just put your drink like by itself. Like, it's so like, it's there's things that we could prevent these things.
Yes.
But sometimes at the end of the day, bad things are gonna happen.
Yeah. The other day I was at España's with a friend, and I wasn't drinking, but we were just there, people watching. That was what we do. Sociology. They know.
I do that a lot.
Yeah.
That's
we
why I
just
go
people
everywhere by
watch.
myself.
As an anthropology major, that's what I did too.
Oh, yeah.
Study cultures, And so we were just people watching, and we see that there's this girl. She's at the bar, and she's surrounded by a bunch of guys. Like, when I say surrounded, she's surrounded. It's one petite girl and like 5 guys around her trying to buy her drinks. And we see that this girl's like falling over. Like, you could tell she's drunk, she's intoxicated, and the bartender keeps serving her drinks when one of the guys tries to take her. And at that point I was like, oh, like, we need to intervene. We need to, like, make sure. But it's also it's also, it was like, what if he knows her? What if he's with her, right?
Yeah.
So we were just watching, and we noticed that it was just one guy that walked out with her, that he was there the whole time, but he wasn't hovering. So we're like, okay. And then we were watching the other guys, and the other guys followed after. So I was like, wait, what's going on? So we walked out of Españas just to look, just to see that they weren't going into like the same car or anything like that. But the fact that something like that can happen, it's so happening so close to home, and like it happens constantly.
As
And,
you're
like,
watching.
Yeah, and with my experiences and everything I've had, like I see that, and I want to step in. I want to be like, you know what, like, hey friend, like I'm gonna take you home, like let's go home. But sometimes it's really hard because you don't know, like you don't know if they were there with someone, you don't know, like if maybe they weren't completely, maybe they were still aware. It's really a difficult thing, but that's why I just watch, and I'm like looking for little cues. Once I see a little cue, I'm like, oh, that's not okay. Like I'll be like, okay, well, you know what, like vámonos amiga, let's go. And just make it seem like you know her. I think that's one of the things they teach you too in college. There were some workshops where they're like, oh, like if you could step in, do your job, do it. Like if you ever see a situation, be like, oh hey, like I was looking for you, just step in. But it's crazy, it's hard.
I don't want my daughter to get older. Now I'm just scared. Now I'm just scaring the shit out of myself.
You're like, I'm gonna stop asking you guys questions.
Yeah, I don't. I don't want to have this talk anymore.
I think I'm gonna microchip my daughter now.
But at the same time, it's like she has to go through these
Experiences.
Like, I don't know. And then you can't be a hero all the time,
Yeah.
right? I hope you don't go out all the time.
Oh,
Just
no.
no. and just
Let me
watch
go.
people. Who's gonna
No,
be
we just people watch. I think for us, people watching is kind of just like, oh, like I wonder why this person's doing this or that. I think for me, like I'm really big on cultures, languages, and so like I like knowing why people do certain things. And so I'm just like,
So what do you got going on other than working at Gloria's? Like, what do you do for fun? What do you
go to the gym?
Where do you go?
Go to Valley Fitness, because that's the gym that's open later and there.
And what else? What other stuff? So like, what do you do for fun?
I don't really have time for fun
Yeah.
because I wake up at like 3-4 in the morning to make my brothers and my dad food. Then I usually clean the house, and then I come to work, and then by the time I get out, I go to the gym, and I go back to sleep, and I repeat.
Yeah.
I have no time for fun.
I
Sadly.
think I give. I don't know. Maybe I might be overstepping my bounds, but I think it's time to live.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think it's time to live. Like, get out, and I'm not saying leave your parents. Like, oh, fuck you, parents. Like, I'm gone. But I think it is. Sometimes we let family hold us back a little bit, and I think you're super smart.
I think for me right now it's hard because my dad he recently had a health scare.
Yeah.
And so his blood sugar was almost 200, and
Yeah.
a doctor told him that it was really dangerous for his heart. So we were really scared because it wasn't going down for a while. And so I think that's why right now it's also like a big part of my day, because I make food that is good for blood sugar, that is going to help him, it's going to be healthy. That food in itself, just me prepping for him, he's lost 30 pounds.
That's good.
And so like it goes back to being the oldest daughter. Like
Yeah.
I want to like, you know how many times I've been like, you know what, I'm gonna move back to LA. I have friends in LA who keep telling me, come live with me. And I have these dreams I want to do. I want to travel, I want to do so much, but I'm the oldest daughter. And
Yeah.
even my brothers have said, like, Mayra, you're the one that's going to take care of our parents when they're older. And it goes back to, this community.
Yeah.
We, as women, as older women, we are the caretakers of our families, and that includes our parents. So I know that I am going to look after my parents when they're older. And even now, anything they need, they come to me. They don't go to I have 2 older brothers. They don't go to my brothers. They don't go to my younger sister. Like, all of them are just kind of like, And I'll even, one time I asked my parents, I was like, why do you come to me? And they tell me, Mayra, they don't listen. Like, you're the only one that can help us.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, okay, well, there. And I admit, sometimes I get frustrated because it's so much. And I'm like, it's not my responsibility. But it goes back to, you know, they've done so much for me, and at this point, like, they're older too. I feel bad just putting everything on them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I really wish I can just be like, I'm gonna go move out, I'm gonna do this and that, because I have my bachelor's. I can do other things, you know, but I can't just leave my responsibilities and my family behind like that, you know. I have to
I see that, and we'll wrap it up in a little bit, but I see what you're saying, but at the end of the day, as a father, I think at the end of the day, like, your dad, like, even if he can't say it now, even if he's struggling with his health issues, I think at the end of the day, even years from now, he's gonna look back and say, I want my daughter to succeed. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
even his health, like, I know you care about him, but I think, like, he wants you to succeed. So I feel like you should go succeed.
yeah.
Sorry, I don't like. I for some reason I had to say it. Like, I feel like, yeah, and it. I think you're very smart. For you to tell me that you have three bachelors, that's fucking insane, dude. Like, you know, and it takes time. I'm not gonna say you're gonna leave your parents' house or you're gonna right away, but just know at the end of the day, you have to I don't think you're meant on this to be on this earth. Just from talking to you for right now, I don't think you're meant on this earth to just make sure your family's okay. I think your family put in all that work for you to do something.
Yeah. Well, I actually just got a job with Merced
Woo!
County. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna be a family representative. So the people, when anyone applies for CalFresh or and
You
if
should have
anybody
told me that
need-
before I
anybody
said
need-
that. I thought you were.
yeah, I'm gonna be the person to interview people and make sure
Cool.
that they, you know, yeah. So I actually start training in November, and yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have an office job.
A
Well,
step.
And
I
it's here
take
Los
that
Baños,
back. I
so-
take that back. You're doing good.
And
'Cause
it's here Los Baños, so.
You didn't tell me that before I said all that. But, yeah. But
Yeah.
I want to thank you guys. Like, you guys gave me perspective. That was cool. And I think I was excited to do this because I think that you guys should start a podcast too.
It's funny because we've talked about it
Yeah,
before.
we
Yeah.
have.
And if whatever you guys need, just let me know and I'll help you guys out.
Follow
$1
her
million.
Instagram-
Oh yeah,
Just
oh
kidding.
yeah. Where do people contact you? Follow you guys? All that stuff. TikTok, Snapchat.
My OnlyFans is. I'm just kidding.
Hey, don't worry, that subscription is only like $5 a month. It's fine.
I lowered the price for you guys.
Yeah.
Get this deal right now.
Well, you can find me on Instagram as Melitelli, or you can always find me here at the shop. I'm always usually here, all the time.
Except Wednesdays.
At La Gloria's.
Except Wednesdays. We close on Wednesdays.
Yes, please.
Where else? I don't know. In Los Baños. In SJ.
Okay.
I don't know.
You find her at the club throwing it back.
Not a specific address for them to contact you.
She's like,
Like,
that,
let me
that
give you my
house with
phone
the red
number.
truck.
This is my fax number.
617. No, just kidding.
Mayra, where can they find you?
You can't really find me.
She said at Españas on Friday nights.
No.
People watching.
No, yeah. My Instagram, I guess it's May_RA101 because nobody ever knows how to spell my name, so it's Mayra.
Mayra.
Yeah, but you can probably catch me through her Instagram. She posts us a lot. We're pretty
Cool.
fun
Yeah.
At Walmart.
at Walmart.
All right, guys.
Shenanigans.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for doing this. Thank you. Bye.